Everybody, welcome to The King is Coming. My name is Kyle Loriano. I'm here with Nathan. Nathan's all the way across the pond in the United Kingdom. Nathan, thank you for coming on to The King is Coming show and for declaring your testimony about Jesus Christ. Um, the floor is really yours, Nathan. I would love to hear about your upbringing, just really understanding who you were as a child. Did you always have a faith upbringing as a boy, or was this something that came later in life?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian household. I grew up with my mum and dad. My dad went through a period where he was a pastor for a couple of years. So I'm like
Mm,
growing up in it my whole life. My granddad was a pastor. And to be fair, we don't know much about my family before my granddad. So it really started, so I'm like second generation Christian. So it's really started from there. That's like where the base started of faith has always kind of been a thing. Like relationship with God has always kind of been there, if you know what I mean.
yeah. Well, that's definitely special, and having that firm foundation, even as a youth, it must have been, I'm sure, challenging at times. But how did it look like when you kind of went and against adversity, if you will? You know, when you had other kids that maybe were outside of the faith, kind of really poking and prying at you. Did that start
Mm,
to kind of tear down the foundation, or did you always remain strong throughout your childhood?
I feel like my parents did a really good job of not necessarily forcing it on us, as in like it was standard practice. We go to church on Sunday, it wasn't really a question, but more they did it. Do you know what I mean? They lived it. They were up early doing the Bible studies, doing their devotions. They were Monday, Tuesday, meeting people, getting people over, discipling people. Like they lived it out, and instead of telling us do this and do that, they kind of showed it subconsciously. And subconsciously, I think that rubbed off a lot more than when you hear some parents, in a sense, would try and teach the kids by just
Yeah.
like school teaching, like telling them like exams, like do this, do that, read this many Bible verses. Like it was never like that. It was more, yeah, through their diligence and their trust in God, like their prayers probably kept me a lot.
Mm.
And then seeing them do that was just like so powerful. And to this day, it's like I'm so grateful for it.
Wow. And that's pretty powerful in itself too, especially coming from kind of an area that's really dominant with Roman Catholicism and Catholicism as the root. I'm surprised about that kind of background being so early in life that you've already encountered
Mm.
Christ in that way. So that's amazing. So tell me, Nathan, when you went through your life, kind of going into maybe your young adulthood years, what did it look like for you? Did you ever have a falling away from the faith, or were you always kind of just remaining true?
I think everyone kind of goes through a period where you one foot in, one foot out. I wouldn't say I ever fully jumped out at all because a lot of the encounters, I would say encounters I had with God, I was really young. So it was kind of things that were always there, and I can get onto that. And that's, I would say, I probably gave my life. I would say I put it in quotation marks, like to Christ. Probably when I was like 7 or 8, I remember being sat in the back of mum and dad's car, and at this point in life, they were pastors, so they were pastoring a church, and I just used to always like being around church, not necessarily because of I wasn't sat listening, writing notes about the preach, but I just enjoyed like the atmosphere, enjoyed being around people, just enjoyed that side of it quite a lot. And I just remember thinking, like, oh, there's something I quite like about this. I remember just asking my mum, like, how do you become a Christian kind of thing. And then obviously she taught me through like the basic of salvation. Oh, you just give your life to Jesus and say, oh, you want to live in a relationship and walk life with him. I remember just saying that in the back of the car and thinking, oh, cool. Like, that's it now.
Wow, so you're already 7 years old and already contemplating a lot of this stuff that's on your heart. That I think that showcases the truth of what the Bible says that all that come as a child receive Christ, right? And that's a prime
Mm,
example, Nathan. You know, you're already getting drawn in at such a young age. Most people here, at least the church body, the modern church body age, always says, "Well, come to Christ later on," right? You've dabbled in the world,
mm.
now you can come to Christ and get cleaned up. But he's already drawing you at such a young age, which is beautiful. So tell me about that then. So your father was a pastor, and your upbringing was so strong in that. What did it look like in terms of what you saw, not only in your home, but maybe in the world, of how you could kind of counteract a lot of things that you had as a biblical foundation where other people didn't.
I think a lot of it was having that steadiness at home made a massive difference. But I think it's also, I'll get onto the foundation of, I'd say, my faith that is kind of separate from my parents, because a similar age when I was like probably 7 to 10, I can't, like that age bracket, so like quite young, I remember I was getting really anxious about if God was real or not, because you have no concept. You're not reading and kind of analytically looking, or is it the most logical kind of conclusion? You're just kind of thinking, is it true or not? And I remember I was getting really wound up. I remember asking my mum again. I was asking my mum, I said, how do you know God's real? And I kept asking her this question. And she gave me, like, I look back now and I'm like, it's quite a brave answer in a way. But I remember she said, just ask, like, pray to God and ask him to reveal himself to you and show him to you and be very specific about it. I remember her saying, like, be very specific about it. So I remember I went to bed that night and I remember praying that I could control my dream, because, like, what kid doesn't want to control the dream? So I remember praying, oh God, I pray if you're real that I can, like, do whatever I want, control it, and know, like, be conscious that I'm in a dream. And then that night, like that exact thing happened.
Wow.
So I remember being consciously in the dream. I remember the dream, it felt about 5 minutes long. And, like, as a kid, I think I just, like, turned myself to a skyscraper. Like something like innocent and dumb and stupid, and then I kind of remember waking up. And from that point onwards, I was quite, like, set that that doesn't just happen. Like, I've never had that since. I've never had it before. Like, it doesn't just happen.
Wow.
So there was always that basis of something's happened that I can't explain, that's not of this world, on top of the foundation that my parents have set. So that, like, set such a real firm foundation in a sense.
And that was because your mom told you to pray specifically for that encounter. And when you ask, he delivers, right? And I'm sure that shaped your kind of your understanding, right? Gave you a firmer foundation to say, well, this is not just some guy in a book. This is somebody who's really interacting with me now. And that's really cool, though, because, you know, we hear about a lot of stuff on the other side where, you know, they talk about astral projecting, doing all these crazy things, but it's in the demonic sense. But this is actually something where it's God's actually showcasing to you His truth in a playful sense, if you will. But you know, but you see how that teeters and totters based upon, you know, who's really crafting the story, right? But God's the ultimate author of all of our stories. So, yeah, Nathan, that's fascinating. So you're 7 to 10 years old when you start asking that, and He's already showcasing that to you supernaturally. What else really happened then at that point?
Well, I'd say it's not a similar encounter, but so at that point I got, like, quite, I won't say obsessed, but I got quite obsessed with, like, heaven and hell in a way, and, like, the spiritual realm, because as you would. And I remember I'd always go on YouTube and I'd search up, like, heaven and hell videos, like people that had gone to heaven, people that had gone to hell, like, and just watch the videos. And I got very, like, quite obsessive about it. And then over that period, I remember I had another encounter, which a lot of people deem it as sleep paralysis. So I'd say I had sleep paralysis. And I only had it once. I remember I was just going to sleep. I remember when I was younger, me and my dad and my brother would, like, stay up, play Xbox, do that kind of thing. So we'd all, like, camp out in the lounge. So it was like that. So they were in the lounge. There was me and my dad and my brother all asleep, like, on the couch on the floor. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and there was this chest of drawers. And I remember on the top of the chest of drawers, there was, like, a demon, like, looking down at me and staring at me, and I couldn't move. So I was like, I could move my head and move my eyes to, like, see what's going on, like, looking to the right, looking to the left. And my brother and my dad weren't there. So I was like, this is weird. And I think the most surreal thing about it was I never felt, like, fear. I felt, like, agitated, like, this is a bit weird. And the longer it went on, the more you're like, all right, this isn't nice. And I remember all I was trying to do was shout, "Dad." So I was trying to get out, "Dad, Dad, Dad," because when you're a kid, you want your dad when you're in that kind of scenario. I remember after a couple times of saying it, I got it out. And then from like the right hand side, there was a door next to these chest of drawers, and a massive white bright light came straight through the door, and the demon light fled, and I blinked because of this light. And then I woke up in the same position that I was in during the sleep paralysis, and then no one else was in the room. And I remember just getting on with my day as if nothing had happened. But those two encounters, obviously together and separately, have massively set a foundation of this isn't just something. This is something more. This is real. No matter what it is, there's something more than like the material world that we live in.
Mm. Wow. So you actually had a sleep paralysis encounter at such a young age too, and you
Mm.
said it was staring at you like on top of your cabinet, and that's
Yeah, yeah.
what did it look like? Do you remember?
It. I remember it being like a deep blue, like a kind of
Mm.
dark blue, and it had like a sinister kind of smile.
Mm. Wow.
And I don't even know if I'd say horns, but had like a curved kind of thing going on.
Wow.
And then anything more than that, like I can't really remember.
Do you think you didn't have that like fear, that true pit of fear because you had already a relationship with God at that point?
Yeah, yeah, I'd definitely put it back to that, and and that affirmed it even more by saying like father, dad, dad, and then God came,
Huh. Wow.
and
I
I
didn't.
think
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it set like a real precedent in my life, no matter where my mind went, no matter what things happened, that there's something for you, there's something looking out for you. And yeah, it set a real foundation, as I've said.
Wow. And I didn't piece that together at first because when you were saying dad, I was picturing your earthly dad, but then all of a sudden the
Mm,
light came. I didn't really think about it being that he would still answer. And
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
first time I've ever heard that. I've heard a father, but then when we say dad, it's the same thing. So
Mm,
he's still answering your call and he comes through the doll, which is interesting, right? Like was that doll
mm.
something that ever gave you comfort or was that just something that you just had in your room?
It was just door, sorry, not doll.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, so different, different.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so then it just came in and then it vanished at that point. That's amazing.
Mm.
And it shows the power, right? It shows the power of who we serve at the end of the day. So Nathan, this how old were you at that point?
Again, probably like 10.
I
So all this happened at like a real young age,
yeah.
which is which kind of what set the precedent
Yeah.
for like my oncoming years into where I am now.
Hmm. I wonder why you had such spiritual encounters so early. It must be because of your parents' upbringing being so devout in
Mm.
their faith. It was probably just going after you and attacking you, but you still had a strong foundation, so it didn't really, it didn't really cause that fear that it was wanting to. That it's just interesting that why it targeted you specifically. I'm curious, Nathan, when you spoke to your parents and all that afterwards, what did they say about it? Did they just were they kind of like astounded by it, or was it just like, hey, typical day?
Yeah, they were a bit less like wow. They were a bit more like that's kind of what happens,
Yeah.
but in like a softer tone, as because I'm a child. They're a bit more like yeah, these things
Hmm.
can happen, these things do happen, but like God's bigger. Like in the basic of term,
Yeah.
that's kind of how they would have put it, and it it just like gave so much comfort. But it also instead of sparking like a fear, like you kind of expect it to, it more sparked like a massive curiosity.
Oh, interesting.
So from then on, like I was hugely obsessed with like demonic realm, like all those kind of things, like Ouija boards. Like not that I'd done any of it,
Yeah.
but I'd got really like obsessed with watching videos on it, like people who've been there, done that kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
Like it really sparked like a massive fascination for it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think curiosity is just what we are, right? We're always
Mm.
curious, and especially as boys. I mean, I was the same way. So Nathan, I mean, you're only 10 years old at this point, having so much spiritual encounters. Did you have any additional spiritual encounters, kind of growing up as well?
No, I wouldn't say I had anything like that
Yeah.
since then. I probably had like one or two pictures, but nothing more like that. So from then, obviously, what is it, 10, 11?
Yep.
You kind of going to start high school at that point here in England. That's kind of how the school system works. So from about 11, you're in high school till about 16. So from that point, then I'd gone into high school, which was quite like a not mundane, but I feel like nothing, not too much happened. Like not too much shook my faith, not too much went on, but I did get really involved. Like it set much more of a foundation of a church. Like at that point, my parents stopped pastoring a church, and we moved to a new church. And I got a lot more Christian friends at that point, because beforehand it was more like a lot of my school friends that I'd just bring to church and like all that kind of thing. We didn't really. I wouldn't say I really had any Christian friends until, yeah, kind of like high school time, like 14. Started going to church a lot more. They had a youth group, and then kind of building a faith kind of for myself from that point, instead of just constantly thinking faith is encounters with God, faith is encounters with like a different realm.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really kind of where you start to kind of untether yourself, right, from your family's faith to your own personal faith.
Mm.
So when that happened, that transition happened, did you have a lot of a lot of worldly things happening at that point? Did you start to go into kind of like the world start to pull you in? Is what I'm trying to ask. Did something like
Yeah, I think,
were they trying
yeah,
to push you
definitely. I
in?
think you try and do both.
Yeah.
I think definitely probably from that point, from 11 till, I'd even go as far as to say 19,
Mm.
20-ish. Because I'm 23 now. So probably only around 3 years ago, I'd say that I've fully, probably a bit more, maybe 4 years ago, probably about 19 is when I was like, all right, this is like, you were kind of either in or you're out.
Yeah.
So it was more like just messing around, kind of doing things you shouldn't do, to the point where the consequences wouldn't have been big enough to catch up with me. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
just messing around with friends, probably just doing a bunch of things you probably shouldn't do, like messing around with a few girls, like these kind of things. Nothing outrageous, but stuff you inherently know you shouldn't do.
Mm.
But it was like it leaves a mark on you, definitely. It leaves a mark on the way you think, and especially as you get older, because you realise the standard of God is so high that
That's right.
all these little things, like little blemishes, like they use the metaphor of a sheep a lot, obviously, in the Bible, and it's like, and I just like looking at it now, it's like I imagine it's like just loads of little blemishes, little black blemishes, like dots, and eventually that becomes like something a bit more holistic. That you probably have to start to deal with these things, because they'll become something bigger.
Mm. That's exactly right. And just one spot takes us out of heaven, right? So one
Mm.
spot, one blemish, that's all it takes. And that's why, the sacrifice that was made was so wonderful. So Nathan, obviously you're kind of doing what every guy at this age does, right? Like you're going into the world, but you're not really feeling fulfilled from the world. It seems like you realize those consequences of those actions, right? I know for myself, I never had that, right? So for me, I just thought it was
Mm.
normal. But you had that foundation, so you can already sense right from wrong, and your spirit knew, which is
Yeah,
really cool, right? So
I
your
think that's a
spirit
deeper
already
thing.
led you.
Yeah, I think conviction was definitely massive during that time.
Mm.
Like with certain things, especially like with women, like conviction would hit like nothing else.
Yeah.
And then instantly, yeah, there's something that's not me saying like that.
Mm.
Like we're pulling away from this, and that's when I come back to as well. Massively saying, I feel like the prayers of parents matter so much. The prayers of family members matter so much over kids and over younger people, because I believe it's a lot of the time their prayers and things like that that
Mm.
kept me during those times. And I think that's powerful. And I think also during that time was when, like, you try and I was trying to get close to God. Like, I wanted to know God on a deeper level because of the things that happened previously. Then obviously you can't comprehend that all these little things that at the time don't have any consequences, but you know inherently bad, ultimately pulling you away,
Yeah.
like, from God, because obviously there's sin. It's sin that separates. So if you're willingly sinning, and I feel like it's comprehending that as you're younger, you kind of disregard it because you're like, oh, I'll get to it another day.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what it was for quite a while.
Wow. But it's interesting how God pulls us back in, right? And like
Mm,
now, look at yourself to today. You've been drawn in, and you've been pulled out of that because of that conviction, because of that I guess that purpose, that plan that God has for everyone, right? Each one of our lives. So Nathan, you currently, what do you got going on now then in conjunction to, how you're serving God and how you're kind of leading your life at that point? Because it seems like God's pulled you out of basically the mire, right? He pulled you out of the mire in the
mm,
pit and said, "No, no, no, you're coming with me," just like how your family did, right? So
mm.
what has he done, I guess, recently then?
I think holding, like, going back to that conviction, uh, I think, to be honest, the main thing he did, which I think turned my head a little, was I really enjoyed, like, the local church. Like, I really enjoyed, no matter what I did, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to church on Sunday, no matter what, because inherently I just enjoyed it more than anything. So I think having that was massive. And I also met my wife during that time. So 17 is when I met my now wife, and we started dating and all those kind of things. And she was in church, she was involved, she was that kind of thing. So, like, cliche, you could say it was like a girl who pushed me further in. It was like God was pulling me, and it was like, all right, let's. This little thing kind of hooked me as well, and
Interesting.
I think so. So that, yeah, sounds cliche, but yeah, that was one. That was one thing, definitely. And then from that point, it did, at such a young age. So at 17, it kind of forced me to, like, I wasn't going to date someone for no reason. Like, I was going to try and, well, go the long haul. So it kind of forced me to, instead of not thinking about consequences or doing little things that they don't have consequences now, well, realistically now, I have to have a vision for where I want to be in a couple of years, because it's not just ultimately just me anymore
Mhm.
that it would affect. So I think having that definitely set a foundation for where I am now,
Mhm.
because it forced me to think bigger. It forced me to think further
Mm.
and put actions into place that kind of, because you'd want a good marriage, you'd want to get to that point first. You'd want a house, you'd want a home, you'd want to provide, you'd want to, like, have kids one day, and all these kind of things. You want to have a job to be able to provide. So it was setting those precedents of, right, well, it's a little bit bigger now,
Mhm.
and not like making it a weighty thing, not like forcing it upon myself,
Yeah.
but kind of like it brought quite a calmness that was
Mhm.
like, which was healthy.
Yeah. It provides a stillness, right? It allows
Mm,
you to center yourself and understand, ground yourself, and
yeah, yeah,
understand
that's it.
that, there's a purpose and a plan, right? But something I wanted to talk about with that, Nathan, and that's gonna be talking about getting married earlier, because
Mm,
the stigma here in the United States is very different. The United States culture is very much go out into the world as long as you can and avoid marriage for as long as you can. Let's talk about the blessings of marriage. What in your mind, how has it been a blessing in your mind that it's been one, that you met your wife early in life
mm,
rather than later in life? Um, I just want to talk about that because it's on my heart. And also, I think it's a detriment when we're getting married later and later because you lack that union, and also you have a lot of the open doors and things happen. So yeah, let's just talk about that, Nathan. What does that look like for you at this point, and has that been a blessing in your life?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd say it's also not uncommon here, other than kind of in Christian circles. Obviously, a lot of my
Mhm.
friends who aren't Christians, none of them are married and all that kind of thing. So yeah, me and my wife met at 17, 16, 17 age range, and then we got married at 21 and 22. So we got married last year and got engaged the year before. So I think it's a massive. I think it's for a guy anyway. I think it's a responsibility that is good.
Mm,
If you find a good person, anyway, I think it's a good responsibility to have, because it made me have a vision, and it made me chase towards something, and it made me ground myself, and it made me think less about myself and more about other people as well.
mm,
And even kind of having a feminine outlook on life,
yeah.
where, do you know what I mean? Guys just think, boom, easy, just run through everything, run through a brick wall, and your emotions don't matter, and these kind of things. But it kind of just puts you back. It balances you out a little bit. I think it definitely balanced me out quite a lot.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think
cool.
it's powerful, like you've said, because it being so early, it it did it didn't give time for anything to latch on or anything else to happen. Obviously, God has a plan for everyone,
Mm,
but you don't. I feel like you don't want to go into something later for the sake of just for the sake of it. Like, why hold off if the opportunity is there, and if it's not, like, look for it and just trust God with it. And I remember I was talking to another guy at church the other week. He's a little bit younger, and he's like broken up with his girlfriend, like simple drama. And I was just saying to him, like, the simple way I'd look at it is, if you're ultimately chasing after God and you're praying for a partner, and someone else is chasing after God, I think God's at the top of the triangle. Like, you should ultimately meet in the middle. It shouldn't be like look to the left and try to chase other people. It should, if you chase God, God's going to have that person for you.
mm,
Like, I believe that, as well, as long as you're open to it and not so closed off and narrow-minded about it. Like, God will look after, God will honor that area and look after that area, just like He does with everything else.
yeah. Yeah, he truly will. So Nathan, let's talk about that. If let's say if somebody's watching this right now that is maybe in that same predicament, maybe they're a young adult, maybe they're 18, 19, and they're thinking about not settling down. Maybe they have somebody that they've been close with and they said, no, I'm going to go ahead and pursue the world. What is kind of your message that's on your heart based upon the life that you've seen being cultivated from an early marriage to kind of steer them in that firmer foundation of that walk of what God wants with obedience and having a biblical family rather than chasing
Mm.
the world. Kind of what are your thoughts on that, and how can you steer somebody to maybe think otherwise?
I think ultimately it's, if you want God to be the center of it, then ultimately you kind of have to do it God's way. And I remember I was talking to one of my non-Christian friends who's same age, thinking about getting married and getting engaged and all these kind of things. And he would just say, well, even I came to the conclusion with him that it's like, if you take God out of the equation, like, all you're doing is having a party and then like roommating with someone. There's nothing deeper to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's, if you want that deeper, if you want that foundation, if you want to be able to leave a legacy for your children, to be able to set them on the right path, then why start off? Like, why hinder yourself at the start? And that's ultimately where what it'd come down to. Like, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for someone better? Because if you're waiting for someone better, then you're probably not with the right person. Or you have to like look at yourself, look at your mindset. Because and you see practical things. Like, I understand practically why people would wait, because it's expensive and all these kind of things. But I think that's when it gives you a vision, and it gives you. That's when it's like, well, just, without sounding forceful, like, well, step up a little bit. Like, if you want to be like a man of God, if you want to be a provider, if you want to be a protector, you want to be these kind of things, a pastor for your family, because that's where your first ministry is. It's your family. And it's not just going to happen. Like, you're not going to coast it. You kind of have to step up in that area.
Yeah. And he
provides. And I think guys kind of need that little bit of pressure sometimes. As like, if you've got a good community, you kind of need that little bit of pressure to push you on.
Yeah.
And to make you see things bigger and make certain decisions and like kind of get on with life, or you can just coast and just go, and then 10 years time you're like, oh, what's happened? I'm like with the same person, had 4 different girlfriends. I've just been having people on the side and doing my own thing, and now I want to settle down in it. Everyone's gone.
Yeah, that's real. And I think I think you're right on that, Nathan. I mean, guys need a little bit of pressure. It's just it gets us to, like, when we're backed into a corner, that's when we get the best version of ourselves, or we get the worst version of ourselves.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
It's like one or the other. So Nathan, what do you got going on right now? What are you doing nowadays?
So at the minute, I just do my normal job day to day, 9 to 5. Do my normal job. I do architecture, so I got a job in architecture. Do that 9 to 5, and massively involved at our church at the minute. We go to a church that's probably around 20 minutes away, so a local church near us. So I help out on the production team, serve in that area, and I think local churches are where you'll grow the most. I think online ministry is great. I think things like this are phenomenal. I think things like just meeting up with friends during the week is great. But if you're not plugged into a local church, I don't believe you will grow optimally with God. I think that sets a massive foundation, because you can see it. You've seen it get done in so many different. And a good church, like, there's plenty of questionable churches, but if you go to a good church, you're going to see it done by so many different people and so many different demographics in so many different ways. Because I think people can do things in different ways, but God can still be the center of it, and it broadens your perspective. And that's where the healthy balance of serving and being fed is found ultimately. But you can't just constantly feed yourself, because I can find myself doing, you overconsume. You listen to podcast after podcast, you listen to worship all the time, you go to church on a Sunday and take the message and take the worship in. Then if you're not ultimately giving that back out, you're just going to get spiritually obese. It's not going to fulfill you. You're just constantly taking in, because you're ultimately not really living out what all these things that you're listening to. Because you have to serve to be. Jesus ultimately was the biggest servant who came down to serve. So if you've not got a healthy balance in those areas, then it's not going to be optimal, and it's not going to be healthy for you.
Wow. Yeah, that's well put, Nathan. We have to be the hands and feet of Christ, right? And if we're not doing that, then we're not really walking that walk, right? We're just hearing it. We're hearing the message, but we're not actually pursuing it. And that's where we get spiritually fed. I mean, I think that's really the difference, right? Like, when we talk about, I mean, I have a lot of people that talk to me all the time, and they're like, well, what does it mean, like, when you feel like you're in the spirit? Well, it feels like when you're serving the master above, that's when you're in the spirit. Or when you're in deep prayer, praying for others, that's when you're in the spirit. Like, when you're not about yourself, when you're about others, that's when the fruits show. That's at least what I've always seen. So Nathan, say somebody's watching this now and they're just like, man, like, I want to know, like, more about this guy, Nathan. I want to see where this kind of community is at. Is there any way in which, you have people kind of reaching out to you? Is there anything that you have as a social media or an outlet that people can find themselves either attracted to or go to or whatever?
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, for the first half of the question, I think it comes back to like the simple thing of taking the steps. Like, you could read all the books about Christianity, and you could could read all the information, you could read the whole Bible and not come to the conclusion. But because you haven't put faith into action, you haven't put faith into works, you haven't stepped out ultimately.
Mm.
And I think until you step out and do it, sometimes you're not going to get it. Like, it's not going to click. I think sometimes it needs to be done to click. And then to go to the second half, I'm currently just like side hustle, side like outlet. I do a YouTube channel, so I just do like react videos and like a few other kind of just Christian videos, like once a week, every other week, kind of when I've got a little bit of time. Not too precious about it. So I've been doing that recently, and that's been massive. That's been because it's made me go deeper. Like, it's been huge. It's made me go deeper. So I think that's really good.
Yeah. Well, Nathan, I appreciate you giving your testimony for today, man. And it's been an honor to speak with you. I think there's a lot of truth in your words, and there's a bigger plan and a bigger purpose for your life. I feel that. Nathan, would you mind kind of leading us out in some prayer, and maybe some for the folks here that are going to be listening, that they can probably use some prayer in their life.
Yeah, I'll pray as out, man. Yeah, dig, I just pray over everyone that is watching this right now. I pray that they've got a glimpse of you during this conversation. It's made them it's pointed them back to you, and it's given them a different perspective and a different vision for you, God. And I just pray that they will act upon that vision, and they won't get drowned out by the thoughts and schemes of the enemy and the thoughts that they're putting in their head to put this off. But they'll take action and go into and take the steps to seek a friend and seek a church. And
Amen. And so, if anybody wants to connect with Nathan and go to his YouTube channel, we'll put that in the description below as well. But Nathan, thank you again for your time today. It's been an honor and a pleasure to get to know you and call you a friend in Christ. So,
thanks, Kyle.
sure, we'll keep in contact.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a pleasure, man. I've enjoyed it.
Of course. And for everybody here, this is The King is Coming. My name is Kyle Loriano, and we're out.